Good morning, afternoon, or evening, everyone. My name is Elivaras, and welcome back to Root. Today, I have a very exciting video for you all, as Direwolf Digital over the past month has finally released the next expansion to Root on their platform, the Underworld expansion. This expansion comes with two factions, the Underground Duchy and the Corvid Conspiracy, as well as two maps, the Lake and Mountain map, and Advanced Setup, a beloved form of setup that differs from standard setup in many excellent ways. Now, you've probably, if you've been following the Root scene for a little bit, and especially Root Digital, you've probably already know about this expansion and have maybe already even played it, as it has been a few weeks since it has come out, probably about a month, I think maybe slightly over a month by now. Haven't quite had the chance to cover it yet, as I've been working on a bunch of other projects, such as the tournament guide that released on my channel a few weeks ago, and then a gigantic otters guide that I'm working on as well. So there's been a lot of stuff going on in the background. Haven't quite had time to cover this expansion's release, but I would like to now show you all, through my eyes, the start of the new content in the Underworld expansion, the tutorial for the Underground Duchy. It says saved because I just had a peek in it. We're going to start a new game and hop into it. So these two factions, you know, I kind of say new. They're not new because they've been around in the board game for a few years now, but new to Root Digital specifically. And the first one we're going to be trying out is the Underground Duchy. Now, the Underground Duchy is a very consistent and strong faction in competitive Root play that sees a quite high win rate over many, many games, just because of how strong the faction is, how resilient they are, and the multiple different strategies you can use to approach the game, most of which are quite effective. Now, I am not a moles expert by any means. I do not know how to play the faction all that well. I'm learning. I've been playing a bunch of games over the past little bit and learning how to play them better. And I know some of the meta strats, but I still kind of struggle in the mid game trying to figure out how to, you know, get out of the classic early game strat you see with moles and really pivot into a proper mid to late game swing, kind of figuring out my steps there. So I'm definitely not an expert, but I'm going to share what I know, what I've learned from watching various tournament games, and overall just hopefully present a good, decent opinion and walkthrough of the Underground Duchy. So let's hop right into it. Welcome to the Underground Duchy, a vast underground empire that seeks total dominion of the woodlands. Together, we will strike from below using our vast tunnel system, then sway the lower crust of society to our side, accessing new, powerful abilities. Now, what's really interesting, I don't think the statement there is actually quite accurate in terms of lore. The Underground Duchy, that just for anyone who might be interested, the Underground Duchy is basically just a society of moles that have lived underground for quite a while, but have seen that there is potentially bounty to be earned of some form by taking over the woodland. Now, that said, it's, you know, their whole species lives underground. Like, where are they going to get the manpower and the resources to perform such a challenging quest? And what they actually do, the whole system of the duchy is built upon this idea that the duchy goes out, they perform some sort of feat or act, they sway enough members of the local woodland to their cause, that mole ministers can be brought into the camp of, yes, let's take over the woodland. And then if the moles get set back through losing some of their buildings, the ministers will actually say, okay, you know what? This isn't going as well as I thought it would. We're going to bail. So it's this whole idea of we're setting out to sway creatures of the woodland to our side that allow us to sway ministers to our side. But if we overextend, make some mistakes, the ministers start to bail on us. So it's actually quite interesting, I think. But anyways, to start, we get a tunnel in the corner clearing opposite the Marquee Keep. We also get 2 warriors in this clearing in each adjacent one. Now, I will say this is part of standard, not advanced setup. So in standard setup, people pretty much have to pick corner clearings. You get a random hand of 3 cards. In advanced setup, this is not the case. You actually get a hand of 5, get to pick 3 of them to keep in a sort of draft. And you get to set up kind of anywhere on the map with some restrictions so that factions can't like set up on top of each other and stuff. So during Bird Song, we place 1 warrior in a clearing called the Burrow that can't be entered by your opponents. The moles are quite interesting in the sense that they have a 13th clearing called the Burrow. Moles are just completely safe here. There's no way for any other faction to get creatures in and out of it. So it's a nice safe haven to store some moles if you want to keep them from getting hit. The Burrow is adjacent to all your tunnels on the map and can be used to stage attacks across enemy lines. The moles are fantastic at popping up anywhere on the map if needed, and if they want to, through digging a new tunnel. So something to be mindful of if you're playing against the moles is that if you've got a pretty undefended backline, or as the otters, if you're looking a little too threatening, you never know when the moles might decide to dig on top of your face and pound it in. In daylight, we may take up to 2 of the following actions: build, recruit, dig, move, or battle. Now, this does feel really limiting. You know, the Marquis de Cat, when you're playing them, you're like, I got 3 actions a turn, and it's really not much. You're saying the moles got 2? And it's like, yes, they got 2. But unlike the Marquis, the moles can extend their action economy by quite a lot. First, let's recruit to get another warrior in our Burrow. Now build in a clearing you rule. Okay, so this is teaching us some things about the moles. And the moles operate kind of like the lizards in that they actually, to build, like, it's not quite the same, but in order to build and to perform an action called sway that you'll see in a little bit, you have to reveal cards. So I reveal a bunny card to build in a bunny clearing. Next, we choose which type of building we want. The Castle Citadel, that's what it's actually called. The Citadel is a good choice since it increases the warriors who recruit into our burrow each turn. In evening, revealed bird suit cards are discarded. We revealed a bunny suit card, so it returns to our hand to be used later. So kind of like the lizard cult, this is another faction that really isn't a huge fan of birds and would much prefer to have suited cards, because when I reveal a suited card, it will come back to my hand when I enter the evening step. Now we get to craft using the suits of the clearings our buildings are in. So I have a 1 bunny crafting piece here. Tunnels are tokens and not buildings, so they won't contribute during crafting. Your Citadel building in the bunny clearing will allow you to craft travel gear. Oh, great. So it hasn't taught us about the main mole mechanic here just yet, which I'm sure we'll get to. But there's a lot to unpack here in this opening turn. So moles have a very interesting mechanic where they get to sway ministers each turn. And they have to reveal a number of cards equal to the minister that they sway, and you'll see exactly how this works. But each minister you sway gives them different actions they can take, such as the Brigadier, where they get to take up to 2 moves or initiate up to 2 battles. However, I don't actually know where it shows here. Here we go. Price of failure. This is the big thing that really can hamper some mole strategies. Price of failure says when duchy buildings are removed, return your swayed ministers of highest rank and discard a random card. This is very punishing for the duchy. Losing a minister is very rough, because you can actually only sway a certain amount of ministers in the game. And so if you sway a bunch of ministers and then start losing them, you may not actually be able to get them back, meaning you permanently lose actions for the rest of the game. So as a result, generally, as the Duchy, you do not want to be building turn 1 like this. There are very specific matchups where building makes sense, where you have opponents that can't easily punish you or hit your buildings. But in matchups with factions that can smack you a lot, it is incredibly dangerous to be throwing out buildings, especially with only 2 defenders, because other factions will take that opportunity and say, hey, the moles are a really strong faction, so we're just going to go and smack their building and kind of knock them down a peg. So you will actually very rarely see moles build up early unless they think that their opponents can't take advantage and actually knock their building down, that they don't have the fighting power for it, shall we say. The other thing to note, generally as moles, your daylight actions, as much as possible, you want them to be recruit actions. Because we're not going to be building a lot, because that's very punishing for us if they die, moles are going to struggle recruiting. You get 1 in the burrow each turn. That's a very low number of moles. And if you want to actually like go out into the board and do things, you need a lot more than that. So typically in the early turns, your ideal early turns as moles is just recruit, 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 recruit. Now, not for every early turn, because there are times where you're going to want to recruit and then maybe dig somewhere out onto the map. But you're going to want to do a lot of recruiting with your daylight actions. You really don't want to be spending them in other ways unless you need to. So that's just some prelude I want to get out of the way with some early mole strategy. You really want to focus on recruiting, and you don't want to be putting out buildings out early unless you're sure your opponents will not be able to smack them for a while. Because this isn't like we put out a building because my opponents can't hit me this turn or next turn. A building is a liability pretty much at every point in the game, most of the time as the moles. So it's not like, it'll survive 3 turns, that's fine. If it's going to die turn 4, that's still a problem. We still lose in action. So we still lose a minister and kind of get set back. But anyways, finally, we draw a card and pass turn to our whiskered opponents. This is another reason. So moles, generally, especially early in the game, if you end up building anything, you want to be careful about crafting super early, because you're going to need your cards to do some very important things and expand your action economy. And so you don't really want to be throwing away your cards willy-nilly, especially for like 1 point. So during Birdsong, you add 1 warrior to the burrow. Thanks to the citadel you built last turn, you get an extra warrior for a total of 2. Your feline foe is left to building exposed in a mouse clearing to the west. This is ripe for an attack from our burrow. Dig a tunnel in that clearing to send your warriors there for an attack. So this is just teaching us about the dig action. Generally, as the moles, once you get past turns, like turn 2 or so, you can start digging out onto the map with some moles and kind of perform some hit and runs, where we dig, we kind of pop out onto the map, we get some points for ourselves, and then usually what can actually be really nice is retreating back into the burrow to make sure our moles don't get wiped. Mole warriors are incredibly valuable because of how hard it is for us to recruit and how limited our recruiting is. So you generally want to be careful about leaving moles on the board, unless we're using them to specifically defend buildings. I mean moles in large quantities. You're going to need moles on the board to do a very important thing that I'll teach us soon. But yeah. Once a tunnel is on the map, you may also freely move warriors between it and the burrow with the move action. So with your warriors in place, it's time to show the marquee no clearing is safe from the underground duchy. So we're going to go and smack them up. Those moles came out of nowhere. I thought they were supposed to be the blind ones. Brutal. Moles slapping. Bird card, kind of unfortunate. Have to build up their sawmill again. Unfortunate for them. They're going to go defend the keep. Alright, we got our 2 moles in the burrow. Our plan requires that we secure more bunny clearings. Move 2 warriors to a bunny clearing held by your enemies, then battle there. So what the game's basically kind of trying to tell us to do is that, we've got some really good bunny crafts, so we should be, moving into bunny clearings to try and build up buildings in there so we can craft stuff. And again, he wants to move 2. And again, this is very dangerous. Having such, I really don't know why we're battling the cat, because we're probably going to get hit for one damage back. If it wants us to build, gosh. Well, actually, no, we only have 2 actions, so this is a little odd. Okay, no, it's teaching us how to sway. Okay, we can now sway powerful ministers to our side, scoring victory points and increasing the actions at our disposal. Ministers come in 3 ranks: squire, noble, and lord. Higher ranks require you to reveal more cards to pay their cost, but are worth more VP and have more powerful abilities. Let's sway the Brigadier to increase our movement and battle prowess in future turns. I'm so proud, Direwolf. They actually got this right here. The Brigadier is quintessentially the best mole minister to sway on your first turn. Every mole strategy ever worth its salt sways the Brigadier. Why? Because its action is incredibly powerful and is a lot of bang for the buck. You either get to take up to 2 moves or initiate up to 2 battles. Incredibly strong for us. To sway a minister, you must reveal a number of cards from your hand equal to the minister's rank. 2 for squire, 3 for noble, and 4 for lord. However, you can only reveal cards matching clearings where you have pieces, and each of those clearings lets you reveal only 1 card. So this is a very important mechanic of the moles, and this is what can make them, like, they're a militant faction technically, but they actually behave more like an insurgent faction a lot of the time, because the optimal way to play the moles in a lot of scenarios these days in competitive route is to actually just throw out lone individual moles in a ton of clearings, where the Brigadier can really help doing that because of the 2 moves. And this gives you the ability to use cards in your hand to sway, because you've got a ton of moles everywhere in clearings matching the cards in your hand. So all you need is pieces. That's the important thing. You don't need rule of the clearing. You just need a piece in the clearing. So we're using a bunny, and a bird. Unfortunately, we're going to lose the bird because it's a bird. But we did just sway the Brigadier, and we're going to get 2 points. Now, very important. You score 2 points for playing Brigadier because it is a noble, and remove 1 of the 3 noble crowns from your inventory. Once you are out of noble crowns, you will no longer be able to sway more noble ministers. This goes for all of the 3 categories, and this is why losing ministers can be very painful. Let's say you have 3 nobles all swayed, and the nobles are incredibly strong. They are probably the strongest ministers in terms of your action economy, and the ones you want to get online the earliest, well, outside of the banker. The Brigadier allows you to take up 2 moves or initiate 2 battles, and the Mayor allows you to take the action of any swayed noble or squire. So the Mayor effectively allows you to, let's say, double Brigadier, or double any of the squire, or double banker in the late game. Incredibly strong. But let's say you sway all of your nobles, and then you lose a building. You've lost a noble now because it's your highest swayed minister, and you can never get that noble back because you've already used all 3 clowns. Every time you sway a minister, you effectively, what actually happens when you play the board game is you take the minister card and you put it next to you, and you put a crown on top of it from the little noble section of your board, and that crown is now used up. And if that minister goes, the crown is gone. You can no longer use it. It's out of the game. So it's very punishing to lose ministers, especially when you've swayed a lot of them, because it means you might not be able to sway them ever again. All right, cat's doing some cat things, building up. A very juicy clearing up here. I'm going to recruit 2 more moles. Feeling hungry for cards? It's time to build a market. This building will increase the amount of cards we draw in the evening. Now, the problem with this is that, and this is another reason why building early is really tough, is that you're only going to start the game with 3 cards. If I want to be swaying ministers as soon as possible to get my actions up, especially generally the first 2 sways you do are Brigadier followed by Mayor. At that point, you're able to dig on. You have enough cards in your hand. You're going to be up to about 5. You can dig onto the board, perform a hit and run, and get ready to sway a lord. That's usually the early action. You sway brigadier, mayor, and then a lord. And then from that point, it opens up a little bit, but usually that's what you see in optimal mole play. And the problem here is that because of all these cards we're spending, we're revealing, we're not going to be able to sway a good minister, or it looks like, because we're trying to dig, not going to be able to sway a minister at all, because you need a minimum of 2 cards in order to sway a squire. So now we're not going to be able to sway anything, and this is bad. As the moles, you want to be swaying every single turn without fail. Every single turn that you sway is another action you get permanently for the rest of the game. And if you don't sway, that is an action you are being delayed for by the rest of the game. For the rest of the game, you're down. Effectively, you're set back by 1 action. Like, every action you could have gotten was now been delayed by 1 turn. After your initial actions are complete, you may use the powers of your swayed ministers. Activate Brigadier to battle in the clearing you tunneled into. So we're kind of going out getting cardboard, but again, you really don't want to be doing this in your games. You really want to be swaying your first couple turns. You don't want to be throwing your cards away to go after some early cardboard. You really, really want your actions online as soon as possible. Once you have Brigadier and Mayor, then you can go out and do stuff. Generally, what I like to do is I'll sway Brigadier. And again, I'm not a moles expert, but I know my way around them okay. You want to sway Brigadier. And then the next turn, using Brigadier, you move some more errant moles, like individual moles, out into other clearings to kind of back them up, or to just kind of spread out more, make it easier to sway. And then that allows you to sway the mayor. And then on turn 3, you can dig somewhere, maybe get some cardboard points, but then be ready to sway a lord, since you'll have had 5 cards by that point. Now, because you only have big sale left in hand, you don't have enough cards to sway a minister. Time to pass the marquee and draw for the turn. Yeah, so this is where things are kind of sad for us, because we don't get to sway a minister. Now, if we were to decide to... oh, here we go. It's going to teach us about price of failure, probably. Yeah, there we go. You take a building, we take a building. Yeah, and this is going to be very punishing, because our poor Brigadier just got toasted. Oh no, we were so focused on aggression that we forgot to protect our market and must suffer the price of failure. When a duchy building is removed, you lose your highest rank swayed minister and discard a random card from your hand, which is awful, not bake sale. So there we go, price of failure. Absolutely thrashed. Our action economy's in shambles. We may have lost a battle, but this war isn't over. Sway ministers, craft items, and attack enemy buildings to score 15 and complete the scenario. Starting back from square one out here. Well, first things first, we really need to get some dudes on the board to protect our building. We cannot have that happening again. If you ever do build as the as the underground duchy, you want to be doing it with as many warriors as possible. Generally, if it's against a really low, faction mix with really low, like, actual hitting power, you could maybe get away with 5 or 6. But generally, I like 8 or more duchy warriors to really be defending. So we're just going to go ahead and sway the Brigadier once again, and the next turn we're going to sway the Mayor for a bigger action economy. No cards to craft. And another thing with the whole building thing, I know some cards look really juicy for you, like, oh my gosh, I could go craft coins, but oftentimes trying to get buildings out on the map so that you're able to do that is just it's a very greedy play that often does not, or that often causes a lot more problems in the late game than it solves in the early game by being able to do that. So now what we're going to do is we're going to collect. We have moles everywhere, so we really don't need to worry about swaying. So we're just going to move some mole. Oh, actually, hold on. No, these are my daylight actions. We're going to recruit more moles in the burrow. We're just going to double recruit. I could dig if I wanted to, but I don't want to at the moment. Whoa. We didn't get to use our brig. There we go. Minister to activate. We're just going to move with the brig. I'm going to get some extra moles. Let's see. We need moles in a fox clearing at least. We have enough moles in most clearings, so I'm going to do that. We're going to fortify our base. Some other things I want to mention about some of the mole buildings. Citadels seem quite good for the moles, and one citadel can be very good. If you do end up building a recommended building strategy is to build a citadel and a market, as it gives you an extra mole to help police every single turn, and then the market, or police or defend, and the market helps you you know, keep up your kind of digging, your card economy, and potentially get some good craftables to craft with your buildings. But you want to be careful of doubling up on specifically citadels. Citadels are a very interesting building because if you actually look here, you recruit a number of warriors into the burrow. It states it here. Burrow recruit rate. The number of warriors recruited to the burrow during birdsong. It's increased by building citadels, and it's actually equal to the number of little mole icons on these. Well, it's equal to if I had 2 buildings out, it would be 2 little icons plus 1, so 3 moles per turn, plus the one I get automatically, so I'd actually get 4 moles every turn. Now, the problem sometimes with this is you actually start recruiting so many moles that they start to lose value. So you would never, for example, want to triple citadel, because recruiting, unless your moles are like getting the absolute snot kicked out of them every turn, because at some point recruiting 6, when you only have 20 warriors total, like 6 warriors a turn, you start to very quickly run up to the cap of warriors, and it becomes a lot less effective to recruit moles. Or sorry, your citadels become a lot less valuable because you're at the max amount of moles for the rest of the game. So it's kind of like, wait a second, why did I build that 3rd citadel when I could have just built a market and be getting more card draw instead of having a 3rd citadel that's doing like nothing for me? So that's something to pay attention to. So we're going to go ahead and use our final noble crown to sway the mayor. A new fox, mouse, bunny, sway the mayor. We're looking good about that. And to 15 is going to be really easy here, but we're going to sway a lord on your 3rd turn. Now, the lord you sway generally will kind of lead toward, like, you want to be thinking about when you sway a lord what you're intending to do for the rest of the game. One of the things you'll see in high-level moles play is you'll see kind of 2 different strategies. You'll see either what's called small mole, small as in the funny way of saying small, or swole mole, which is kind of funny way of saying like bulky. So small mole is a strategy where you never build a single building at all, and you basically just keep spreading individual moles out. You dig, and then one of the primary ways you get points is by swaying this Duchess, well, by swaying, of course, your lords and stuff, but specifically the Duchess of Mud score 2 points if all tunnels are on the map. So that's very, very good for you, because if you can keep your tunnels out on the map as small mole, you can get to an extra 2 points a turn. So that's one way to do it. The other way is to actually is to go small mole, but then pivot into more of a swole mole. Swole mole, that's not really swole mole. Swole mole is starting off by building buildings because you get a ton of warriors really early, and that's why it's called swole. But a lot of times what you'll see is small mole players pivot into building buildings at some point in the game. They build up enough warriors in the burrow, they can dig out into a clearing with 2 building slots, put like 8 or 9 or 10 moles out there, build up some buildings, and then race to the finish line with those buildings defended. And if you're going to do that, you wouldn't want to sway the Duchess as your lord. You would actually want to sway either the Baron of Dirt, more likely, or the Earl of Stone, which gives points per market or per citadel. So getting used to, when you go to sway your first lord, you really want to be paying attention to what is my intent here. You know, if I'm just getting battled to hell and back and I can't keep anything on the board, I might be playing Smole the whole game, which means I pretty much am forced to sway the Duchess of Mud. If I plan on building some buildings, if the heat's not that high, then I'll think about, okay, what am I going to need? Can I get away with just building markets? Let's sway the Baron. Am I looking for a more Citadel approach to fight more? Maybe I'll sway the Earl of Stone and get hopefully an extra 2 points a turn from the buildings they're going to build. Call out I'd like to make. Banker, very important to sway later in the game. One of your final moles to sway usually, because you have to spend cards, but it helps you get down to your final point bursts, where what the banker does is it allows you to take a number of cards of the same suit. Birds count as any suit, so you could do like birds and mouse, and you get to score them for an equal amount of VP. So if you get like 3 mouse and 2 bird cards, you could score your whole hand for 5 VP, which is huge. So you generally want to see banker sway later in the game. And squires you kind of sway when you specifically either lose cards because of the Woodland Alliance or Corvid's extorting you or something, which we'll talk about next time we do a tutorial, the Corvid Conspiracy. Or if you decide to sway formal to make it easier to build, so you can build outside of your daylight step, and you can mayor. That's not a strategy I see when people want to build early in low aggression matchups, where they'll get a formal quite early on, and then very, very quickly they'll get a formal. You know, you'll get like Brig Mayor for formal or something, and then Mayor the formal to place just 2 buildings really quickly in a single clearing. But yeah, so let's we have 5 cards, so we can afford to dig out somewhere. I don't think there's really a like there's this clearing of 3 that we could dig out onto, so well, let's do it. I've got enough people. I've got enough moles in defending my building at the moment. They can spare some from the burrow. Now, because I already have all 3 tunnels out on the map, I have to actually move a pre-existing tunnel. So I'm going to go out with my scouting party. I'm going to move 4 moles. And when you dig, you can only move a max of 4 moles, just in case you missed that from earlier. And let's see. Our next daylight action is going to be... We can't recruit because we're actually out of moles in the burrow. So we're just going to spread some moles out. And we have enough to do the rest of what we want to... Well, actually, no. We're going to play it safe. We're going to go for a daylight battle in case we roll really bad. And do a daylight battle. Well, so much for rolling bad. Actually, this is going to be 4 cardboard. Holy. Didn't realize how much wood was in this clearing. Brigadier. And we're going to battle. And if we roll a 3 here, it's just GG. Yep. That is a juicy clearing. Holy. And there we have it. The Underground Duchy. I hope that was useful to you guys, especially those that are quite new to the faction or haven't seen it before, and that gave you a decent idea of how to play them. They're quite an interesting faction. I honestly quite enjoy them. I just need more practice with them at more competitive tables to really understand how to play them best in all the different situations. But overall, they're just a very strong faction. The fact that you could pretty much play off the board the entire game and still do really well and not build anything is kind of incredible. And if you're playing against the moles, the best thing you can do, if you can, is to tax their cards. And the second best thing you can do is to take out their individual moles that they place in different clearings, to make it harder, to make them waste daylight actions on like moving units around so that they can sway instead of being able to recruit into the burrow. But yeah, you'll probably see some gameplay from the moles at some point on this channel once I get down to recording some live games and such. But for now, I'd like to thank you all for watching. Have a great rest of your day. Cheers, guys.